show. Man, I am excited for today. And not just those of you, I'm going to describe for Radio Land the universe behind our guest. Miss Anna Sun Choi is bringing some energy. She's told COVID to get back in the box because we ain't playing, because this is about living life to the fullest and having the most energy and enjoyment. And Anna, it is so good to see you today, and I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah.
So I'll just jump right in, because since I'm wrapping around the energy thing. What led you to dive into that? Because by the way, she's a coach. I didn't say that. She's an awesome coach, but she focuses on the energy. So I'm just curious, what drove you into that aspect of life?
Yes. So I was a broke art major with like no experience or connections out of college, and became a financial advisor of all things. And I did.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing with you because I'm sure you look back on it and laugh at it. But
well, can we stop? How did you make that jump? Because that sounds a little precarious.
Cover that one right there.
I interviewed a bunch of folks, like, what did you do after college? And I found there was no correlation. Like 50% of them had a correlation, the others didn't. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna have fun and do my passion, right? And then when I got out, I was like, I studied abroad in Rome for 3 months. And I don't know, something at the time, and now in hindsight it's different, but at the time I was like, I don't think, like, I enjoy art, but it's not like, I must make art. It wasn't like that for me, and I wasn't clear how to obviously make a career with it. I wasn't interested in necessarily becoming a public artist or anything, or being a teacher at the time, so I just didn't have any other options. So I got out and I was like, what do I do? And so I had interviews with like 10 different companies from all different sectors, and literally these people I just liked the best. I was like, they had a good training program. I liked the people. I always follow the good energy of the people. So that's how I got in the industry. And then I'm very grateful. That's where I learned to be an entrepreneur. So it was a very sink or swim, working on Wall Street, right? I had to pass my Series 6 and 63 in 2 weeks out of the gate, from not knowing anything.
I got a lot of friends and clients that have gone through that, and yeah, wow.
It's wild, right? Anyway, and so it was very fast and rigorous. I grew my business to 6 figures within a couple years, by age 25, and was totally burned out. I collapsed actually one day walking into the foyer on a leather chair, and I was like, I'm in my early mid-20s. How am I already burned out? This is not sustainable. So that was like my first little like, bing, I need to find a sustainable path to make money. So I ended up selling that company in about 7 years. The industry was not my passion, but business was. And then I thought my true calling at the time, it's just funny because you don't know, right? You just try it, was to be a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I'm going to start a family. So I water birthed my son.
When you made that decision, had you already picked out the husband? Did he?
Yes. So I was like, the way I just jumped to baby, I was like, whoa, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I met my husband
make sure, because that's an interesting thing, if not.
Right? And that happens too these days. But,
just manifest, right?
I know, just poof. I met my guy. He married my best friend. He was we met the first day actually of college, and I had another boyfriend then, but anyway. So we were just friends, and then we weren't after I broken up with the other guy. So anyway, but we were together about 5 years by that point. But anyway, we had bought a house, we got married, we traveled the world, and I just took a sabbatical off. And so that's when I was a stay-at-home mom for a couple years, and realized after 2.5 years old, I was like, nope, this is not my path. I'm ready to go back in. So we did kind of the unthinkable. My husband at the time was a landscaper, and because I wasn't working, and I say that, but technically I had to work because we couldn't make ends meet with my husband's income. He was blue collar worker doing landscaping, and none of, his family wasn't really career driven. So long story short, we were on like food stamps. Like we were, really dealing with that. And I was really happy, but my bank account was empty. And so that drove also the decision. I was like, I'm more driven. Let's just, so my husband quit and became a full-time dad. His body was breaking too from all those digging a lot of ditches. And I went back, but I had a spouse and a house and a kid to support. So I started my second business in event consulting for social impact, and eventually went into the tech industry. And so I was working with Google, and I'm in Seattle area, so all the tech startups here doing events to fill the tech talent gap. And that was it was really great pay and good. I had a really big client, and did coaching clients on the side. And but my soul was like dry. It was not my industry either. So pivoted that into conscious business coaching, and then to today, which is energy coaching, and help, but still always supporting conscious business leaders.
So tell us what is energy coaching? Because I've got a what do you call it? A definition from the coaching that I did with this course that I went through, the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, and energy levels there. So I'm curious, how do you define energy coaching?
Yes. So energy coaching, it's really about mastering your holistically, your mind, body, heart, and spirit. And, some people could look at that as life coaching. I just have a very specific lens of energy. So consider, this is not like the truth, but we have 3 bodies: a physical body, and then there's which is your physical skin bag with organs, right? You have your energy body, which is, scientifically speaking, your electromagnetic field that you could actually measure, right? And some people might call auras or whatever. But anyway, that's your energy body. And then you have your spiritual body, which is just consciousness itself. It's like what you subconsciously, all the information that comes through. So the energy body is the bridge and the medium between all the spiritual information, energy or consciousness itself, and then our physical form. And so by focusing, people don't think I'm going to take an energy shower today. They don't tend to their energy hygiene, but they ought to, because that's where a lot of stuff happens. The whole psychosomatic things and, mind-body connection. The connection is tending to your energy body. So what I do is provide the practical, hands-on exercises and teachings and trainings for people to take care of their energy body.
I got to jump in on this, Kim. I'm sorry, because I have a wee bit of familiarity in this, and it's through a couple of Tony Robbins events I've been to. And there's a gentleman that helps out Tony Robbins, Master Co. I'm trying to remember. I think he's Filipino. I can't remember now, but he talks about that energy level, and I remember even going through an exercise of, hands up to the person next to you, and if you focus, you could feel the some people, the folks who don't go into that space and aren't open to that, think it's all hokey pokey, and smoke and mirror stuff. But if you're open to it, whether it's my mind playing tricks on me or not, I believe it was, I could feel it.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Master Co, but he's a really neat guy, and what he does.
No, I haven't heard of him specifically, but if right now, for those who might be skeptical, I love actually talking to those people too. So I know this is a podcast and it's audio, but so I'll visually do something. Can I do something with you?
Yes.
And if they're following along, so for anyone who's skeptical, because it might be hard to listen to the rest of this, if you're like, I don't believe in that. You don't have to believe in anything we say, right? It's just consider these different places and do with it what you will. But if you go ahead and take your hands, and if you're driving, do not do this. rub them together and create friction, just heat, right? And a lot of times we got cold hands, but heat, feel the heat, just feel the heat. And energy travels through light, sound, and vibration. So we use a lot of that, but right now we're just using heat. Okay, and then go like this and pretend like you're screwing a light bulb. So shake your wrists and back and forth. And if you're listening to this, just pretend like you're screwing a light bulb in with both hands and twist them back and forth. Focus your awareness on your wrists. They should be getting kind of tired, right? It's like a workout.
Oh, yeah.
Woo, they should be getting hot. Okay, now tap your fingers together with your thumbs and your wrists all together. And focus your energy right there on your tips of your fingers. Focus. Okay, and then you can clap, but if you're in a place where that's hard, and I don't want the sound to go out, so go ahead and make heat. Okay, are your hands warm?
Oh, yeah.
You want to get to the point at least where your hands are warm. Then stop. Can you feel tingliness, heat, energy, anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's energy. And that energy is all around us all the time. Now, we had to do a lot to get to feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're usually up in our heads. But if you're able to feel the energy that's actually all around you all the time, then you can actually master it, which you actually can start to direct the energy.
Mm.
So I'm someone who never gets sick. I have the COVID virus, right? I can't believe I'm saying that here. I'm on day 5, but I feel amazing and great because I'm doing my work, my energy work. So I can actually like move I can feel my organs. You can get to the point where you're so sensitized to your body and what's going on inside. And so I can feel when my liver's like cramped, and do exercises to clear it out and so forth. And I have boundless energy. I've gone from 8 to 6 hours like that. So that's what's possible when you master your energy. It's just a whole bunch of aliveness and vitality and tapping into boundless energy and calm the mind and calm the chatter.
One of the things I remember about Master Co is his story about using. He says that he used energy to help heal his wife because he was not. So he's a later, we'll call it later stage of life, discovering this because Master Co is about my age. And how his wife was sick and terminal, and how he started looking for alternatives and discovered this. And he believes that energy that he used he was able to use that to help heal his wife. So
yes, there's a really good book called it's by Dr. Clint Rogers, and it was Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer. I might be getting that a little bit botched there, but by Dr. Niraj Pankam, who his lineage of where he learned all of his ways is he was the doctor for like Mother Teresa and for the Dalai Lama. Like he was a descendant of that. He actually just recently passed, but Dr. Clint, who's kind of is a Western skeptic, right? He traveled around and just recorded all those kinds of stories that happened to people into the book. So I highly recommend that. And it's. Have you ever noticed like those people that get sick when they're the epitome of health and like it just doesn't make sense, or they have something like a brain tumor or something, something severe, and that's because. Well, I believe that if you come from the mind, body, heart, and soul, one of those is off, right? So they might be really good at physically exercising, but maybe, their marriage is in the crappers and, emotionally the anger and the resentment has built up and now manifested into something into an organ, right? Because, anger is processed technically as a secretion in your liver. And so when you get liver failure, like, there's a connection there, consider. So we want to make sure when you're dealing with energy that you're looking at it from the mind, body, heart, and soul, like all 4 elements. And in my personal journey, all one of those would be always off. And that's what would cause the unhappiness. And so again, energy mastery is also about aligning all of those things so they're all in congruency. As opposed to like 2 of 4 of those things really work in your life, but 2 really don't, you know?
Makes me think of, like you say, the physically in shape person, but they have mental things going on, problems at home. It's always like somebody who runs all the time. Well, what are you running from? Type thing. It's always that joke I think of. But I think that there's a lot of truth to that, where we can use these things, call them a crutch, call them a vice, whatever you want, that can help with those type of problems. But if you never actually address what's going on, then it's just going to kind of fester, whether it's something physical that's literally festering or it's something mental that's festering. If you never actually address it, then you're not going to get much better. One of the, and I'm trying to think who, actually, Charlemagne the God, odd enough. I think it's the first time I brought him up on the show. Dad, you probably don't even know who he is. But he made this really interesting comment about trauma once that I really liked, where he was talking about how it's just like a wound. And yeah, you need to cover it up sometimes. You want to bandage it, but every now and then you got to get in there and you got to scrub that. And the people who are, running away from something, and that's why they run so much, and, they're not happy at home and that type of thing, they're never scrubbing that wound. And I think that's an important, just really applicable way of looking at this, where it's like, yeah, you have to keep moving. You have to keep living. And so sometimes you need that little crutch to keep moving. But, just like a back brace that you and I know about, Dad, just like crutches, just like anything like that, you spend too long on them, you're going to wind up worse than you were in the first place. And so it's like, you have to take that time to really, scrub that wound, I think.
Yes. Oh, I love everything you're saying. Because the question is, are you escaping from something, right? Because even if it's a good thing that you're running away from, like exercise, you're using exercise, or some people, whatever they, if you're not addressing the wound and scrubbing the wound, we call it like valuing your fears and just running straight towards them. That's where the keys lie. That's the root of the issue. You have to go to the root. And so most of our energy work is like pinpointing straight to the root of something and then dealing with that.
I want to go back because I had this written down and we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there. Energy shower. When you say that, my mind immediately went to about 45 minutes ago when I hopped in the shower and I put on my loud rock and roll and I got ready for the podcast. Is that what you're talking about here? Just bringing that energy in, or what was, what do you mean? I doubt it's that's what you meant, but I want to hear what you mean by that.
So for those starting out, I will say, no, it's not a literal, tangible, you can see it energy shower. And then for energy masters, it's you can't necessarily see it, although some can develop themselves that way, but you feel it, and it feels like a little like rope initially, and then it becomes this torrential waterfall if you so choose. Mostly, if you think of our bodies as a sponge, it's just a bunch of cells, right, and molecules and atoms and things. And if you think about, I don't know if you guys have heard of this analogy of the atom, and if it was to scale a football stadium, right, the nucleus, the neutrons, protons, it's going to be a blueberry. And so that's a lot of space between that blueberry and the walls of the football stadium, right, for electrons to fly around. And that's this space. That's like quark. And scientists are still grappling with exactly what it is doing, but it's pregnant space. It's potentiality of energy. And so when you know how energy works and start to master it, you can, I don't want to say manipulate, but kind of, you can learn to redirect energy. And all it is awareness. This isn't like super out there. So for instance, if someone triggers you and your awareness goes outside your body and now you're just like all upset about it, or it goes totally like inside of the emotion, we've all seen Red and we're like in anger and going crazy. And we identify with the emotion and the thought as opposed to like being separate and watching and observing it, right? Which is what meditation helps you do. And so with that energy, you can learn to master first being of the observer, but then once you get to that place, then you can start to manipulate. Is the word that keeps coming up for me, but like you can learn to shift the energy and actually feel the shower.
Well, you become consciously aware of it. Right.
You'll feel like that tingling. It's like that tingling sensation times, imagine that times 1,000, like where it's like pouring, it's like hot and it's pouring, and it'll feel different for different people, but that's kind of how it feels like. It's like people achieve it, scientific studies have been done on Buddhist monks, right, that can be in a freezer and they're all hooked up to EKGs or whatever, and they don't die of hypothermia. They can melt the ice. just like sitting there meditating. They're masters of their energy.
So, all right. I'm just wondering because you walking down the street, you see folks and you're like, oh man, that dude, that lady, they're off. One of their four are off. Do you kind of see that? I mean, body language is, of course, is fairly obvious, but do you see it in a different realm, I guess?
And I was going to add on to that. Are you one of the people that can like hear colors and all that funky stuff? Because I feel like it sounds like it would go hand in hand. I'm sure it doesn't, but it just sounds like if you're, what is that? Like senso, I don't have it, but sense of something. I know I've heard it before, but where you like hear colors and that type of thing.
I don't have that. Synesthesia, I think, is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Taste colors, see things. I think actually one of our colleagues has that. But anyway, I don't have that that synesthesia. And everybody has their own gifts. So mine is, I have an inner knowing. And I'll check it out. Like, if you kind of think of like, there's this world and there's like the metaphysical, right? And so it's no different than this in that it's just invisible, but everyone, I can see colors, for example. So when I close my eyes, some people can see colors with their eyes open, but if I close my eyes, I can actually see energetic colors. And not always. It's usually just black, like everybody else. It's only when I'm in deep states of either meditation or whatnot. So I can cultivate that more, but you want to be careful. It's not about developing some superpower. It's about sharing and helping others and helping everyone, be more enlightened.
Well, and I think you touched on something I think is really important for folks out there is just the fact that you can develop this awareness.
Everyone has power.
And, that's one of the things, the energy levels I talk about are in a different space from what you're talking about. It's more of a how you feel sort of energy levels, positive and negative. But just becoming situationally aware of, how you feel, and then just getting to decide, is that how I want to feel in this situation? Is that how I want to show up in this situation? Do I want to show up pissed off asshole, or do I want to show up, hey, let's get this done, let's have some fun doing it, sort of thing? And there's a big difference when you start to become situationally aware of just yourself in that, as opposed to just going through the motions.
Yeah, that makes me think of, and I already had this written down, so great job, Dad. There's that connection, right? One of my favorite Stoic quotes, one of the ones that's been most impactful for me since I started reading more into Stoicism, comes from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. I don't know which book, but meditate often on the interconnectedness of life. And I think about that so much in terms of just like mindfulness and those type of things, of just what impact you have on people around you, every single interaction, what impact they have on you. And then I think the interesting level beyond that, it really makes me think what you're talking about, Anna, is and Marcus Aurelius doesn't do it as much. Some of the other Stoics do. They talk about like what they call physics, which is just like the natural flow of the atoms and the energies and that type of thing that just naturally draws people towards things. And it's kind of what you're talking about of the, I almost said metaverse. That's definitely not the word you used. I'm sorry, Anna. What was it? What was it? Metaphysical? The metaphysical, is that?
Yes, metaphysical.
Okay, there we go. All right, I knew I was off, but I think it's having that understanding of the mindfulness of that in every single interaction. Whether it's what the Stoics consider physics, call it mindfulness, whatever. That in every one of those interactions, there is that energy, and it can be positive or negative, and that's been, like I said, very impactful for me, because the way I look at it is you have the choice to be positive in all of those situations and to just continue the positive energy out like that. Yes. And so I'm really curious, Anna, where philosophically do you come from into, the energy coaching? Because I hear a lot of things that remind me of, what I've read in Stoicism. I've read a little bit of Buddhism, and it sounds like they're almost two sides of the same coin from completely different parts of the world sometimes. So where do you come from philosophically on this?
Yes, I don't really have any particular set lineage, but I'm influenced by, there's the Sundo Korean traditions. Again, it's not a religion. It's not there's no dogma. It's nothing like that. It's where martial arts is based. I'm a martial artist as well in Taekwondo. So, we talk about harnessing energy and chi all the time there, right? But also, I have energy masters that are enlightened and they're alive. And so one of them, I would say, is kind of in the Hindu realm, but again, no religion, nothing like that. I guess you said philosophy. I kind of draw from
they're kind of interchangeable the more you talk about them, aren't they?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Yeah, it's I'm really keen on, getting from honoring all faiths and religions, and then looking for the common denominator, which is always love in general, right? That's mostly what anything boils down to. So, but there's different approaches, and they all have different aspects, right? Like of how they approach it. So when I'm sifting through what to really offer my clients that'll make a difference for them, I have to make sure it's a fundamental truth based on love, right? That can be cross-cultural and used by anybody as a vetting process before introducing it or trying it on. If it's too exclusive or too whatever, I don't like sharing that. Not that that's wrong or bad, or people can do that. But anyway, but I wanted to just mention, if you don't mind, back to what you were saying about, just to bring this really practical for listeners and such. When you walk into a room and somebody just was in a fight, you can feel that, right? It's like, oh, don't want to be in here. Or when there's like really someone you really admire and love and they've got great big energy and you walk in, it's like, wow, you just feel lifted up, right? Or in a community you love. That's all energy, right? So if we could take a little electromagnetic like camera or measure, you would see certain people are able to project their energy to bigger in a good way, right? We're all powerful, so we're going to give off energy whether we like it or not, on the spectrum of more negative to positive. But you can cultivate yourself to be more positive, authentically, addressing the roots. Like you can't try to be positive on top of feeling a lot of anger all the time or resentment all the time, You know what I'm saying? So you want to be able to, that's part of the journey too, is being able to express and share your good energy and cultivate as pure a good energy as possible. And a lot of that, you have to start with the body, which is clearing, cleansing it out on a physical level, right? What do you eat? What are you ingesting with news or with information? Things like that. How do you breathe? I mean, we could spend a whole thing on just breathing. Because people are using up their breaths of life pretty quickly and die sooner. But anyway, so there's all these different, and emotions, that's a whole other domain, right?
Well, I think that's awesome. And I'm trying to write a note down so I don't forget it, but it, reminds me of just a couple of things. One, I always, and part of what I learned in the energy levels is like energy attracts. And like you were saying, you feel that person's anger and then you get kind of pulled into their story of their anger or their happiness and success. And you're like, yeah, let's go get some. You feel that and it builds. And it's really kind of an interesting thing as you become aware of those situations. And one of the things that I found, going back to Camden's question, that I find really interesting, and the two sides of the coin, or the common thread through all these different things, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, spirituality in a different sense, is those common threads that run throughout them. And I find that fascinating. And I just got to use this phrase, Camden, and I'll apologize ahead of time because I'm very proud of myself for this. But it's from a Ray Wiley Hubbard song, Conversations with the Devil. And he said, the devil is talking to Ray in his dream. It's really a funny song. You got to listen to it. Sorry, Ray. But the devil's talking to him and says that, Jesus wasn't a Buddhist, but he would have been a really good one. And I've often thought of that same sense when you get into Stoicism and you read about Stoicism and the thoughts of how Stoicism is. I think of that also as, as a Christian, think of Jesus in that same sense. Jesus wasn't a Stoic, but he would have been a really good one if he had been, it's kind of that same sense. So you start to see these patterns throughout, human beliefs. What's an African one? Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the, oh man, I can't remember which language in Africa now, but means humanity. And you think about, in that sense, there's yet another tie. So there's just too common of a thread for it not to have some reality. And I find that fascinating to discuss, and kind of, even without a beer in my hand or a whiskey, it's just some really interesting concepts to see those ties in different places.
And I think it's interesting.
One of the biggest energy masters of all. Straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my guru or whatever, like, which I don't even want to say that, my energy master teacher, right? She follows Jesus. Like, she's like, yeah, I'm Christian. Like, it's.
I've had this conversation with people before, whether it's in coaching or, just with friends, like you said, that little bit of whiskey philosopher sometimes, but of the, like, how we as people like to get hung up on words for things that are, in the grand scheme of things, like relatively interchangeable. It makes me think, I don't know specifically what he says, but I remember reading, because I'm rereading Marcus Aurelius's meditations recently. And one of the lines in it, he's like, yeah, chalk this all up to the gods or to fate and he like names like 10 synonyms of just like, whatever it is, it's gods or it's the fate or it's a god or it's, like, and he just names all these different things. He's like, because in the real application sense, the word doesn't matter. And like, we could all three use completely different words for it. But if we're talking about the same thing, that's what really matters there. And I think that's like one of my biggest takeaways I've gotten from touching into, different philosophies. I've got a very multicultural friend group, and I love to talk with, their families about philosophies they grew up with. The Farajis are my favorite. I love my Persian New Year coming up in just 2 weeks. But, all these things that we get held up on just really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, because they're all just us trying to put words to something that we can't put a word to, and then spending time arguing about the right word. There's no point spending time arguing about the right word, because what matters is the meaning behind it. And I think that's a huge thing.
Energy behind it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Full circle.
Yes. No, I really like to say, like, higher power, the universe, God, your true self, whatever speaks to you is what matters. Yeah.
So where do you focus this? I mean, do you like to, like, and I'm sorry, I can't think of a better word. Some people find this strange, but do you target business people, business, owners, or is it more general, like, even, people who are just, I don't know, I'll say it since I've been doing this all show, soccer moms, and not the little soccer moms, not, please, hate males. I love soccer moms. My mom was one when it wasn't cool to be a soccer mom. So
rugby moms are better though.
Rugby moms have a high.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a Renaissance soul, so I totally am a soccer mom. My little son is on select, and we go to soccer games every week, and I coached and all that. But yeah, no, like, I forgot to say the tail end of that when I started a new business is I can't help but work with conscious business leaders. That is one of my primary focuses. So that could be both in the corporate world or with entrepreneurship. But like, we were, in debt, like, whatever, 70,000 and on food stamps. And within a couple years became debt free, grow 6 figures again on my own with my business. Right. So, I know what it takes to run just a basic business. And I have such a heart for entrepreneurs because it's just a whole nother ballgame, but I know for a lot of listeners here who, there's a lot of maybe vets. My dad, was in the military, in the Korean, he grew up in the Korean War as a refugee and fled. And so he, has dealt with his own PTSD, and I've grown up with that. But anyway, so there's a lot, I can resonate with the soccer mom, with the conscious business leader, the entrepreneur. Mostly they're high achievers. I call them Renaissance souls. They're good at a lot of stuff, and it's kind of hard to live in this world when you're kind of it seems like society tells you to be focused on one thing, but you kind of love everything. So high achievers, and then I create a lot of creatives. So a lot of times they're all these things. It's not like one or the other. Mm-hmm. they're creative and conscious. Conscious is like awake, they're self-aware, socially conscious with the planet, like not just consumers, like that.
Does that go back at all to the impact? Because personally, when I think about why I love business coaching and why I love entrepreneurship, is because to me, that is one of the best ways that you can have an impact. Because when you create a business that solves a problem, you can sustainably solve that problem for hundreds and then thousands. And then if you do it right, millions of people, and you can really have that impact. Is that part of what draws you towards those type of people, is kind of just like seeing that I guess energy to have that bigger impact?
Absolutely, because my mission is to catalyze that next generation of conscious leaders globally and really cause the tipping point in elevating humanity's consciousness. And I love that you asked this question, because I don't know if you know Buckminster Fuller, but he was a futurist, and I'm going to paraphrase his quote. Basically, it was like, humanity's going to destroy itself. We're in the final chapter. So whether it's AI or climate change or whatever, or war, we have the solutions, right? Like poverty. Obviously, we have enough food, or we waste it in certain countries and others don't have it. It's a distribution issue. We have the technology to distribute it. Why is it not happening? There's all these other barriers. It's our consciousness. By conscious, I mean coming from love, being for the good of all, like just that simple notion. Imagine if the vast majority of us, and it doesn't even have to be everybody, like just if at least the 10%, right, of the leaders are being that way, that's who I empower and catalyze. Because I know if I raise their consciousness and energetic level, then in their communities, that'll ripple out.
And Dad, what happens when you have better leaders?
Better organizations, which give you better communities, which when we have better communities around the world, guess what? We have a better world. Our whys are very, very similar. Look at that. Almost even the same word. Tonight, we don't even have to translate the words. So my purpose is to create a legacy of leaders, yes, which is very similar to your conscious, what you catalyze the next generation of leaders, I think is what you said, yeah?
I used to say empower, and then I realized we're just peers together on the journey. So
no,
I'm just catalyzing, awesome. Helping catalyze, accelerate.
We just proved our theorem, or we got to ask your brother, Camden, what's the right, how do we describe, is that a theorem or is that a hypothesis? I never can keep those two straight. So we just proved it.
They're all just words, right? What do we just talk about?
It's all just words, and the alignment of creating a greater good. And by the way, I'm restraining myself because I got a couple of rabbit holes that I could run down that one. But is creating that greater good. And if you truly believe in creating that greater good,
yes,
man, how powerful can that be? Saving the world. That ain't BS.
Exactly.
That ain't a BS statement that you say on the Miss Universe pageant. There's truth to it. If you believe there is. Man. So what's next? I know you've got a couple of programs happening that I'm aware of. I'm not participating, no offense, but I'm curious what's next for you and your business. What's going on next?
Yeah, so we're out to create just that, a community of conscious leaders that together can support and really master their energy together. So, when I work with high achievers, they're still typically dealing with, slowing down the chatter of their mind, being more present, and cutting through the distractions, right? So that they can really tap into that boundless energy, no matter if there's war going on, whatever, inside or out, right? And so if we've got a couple things, I'm trying to think this will be out in a week or so, but we've got a masterclass that's come in for 5 weeks, 5 sessions, and then after that in May is a live program. It's an acronym, ALIVE, with Sun Choi, and what I'm committed to is that people have some sort of simple framework and tools to work with. So we have a book coming out as well. The published date's not set, but it's about that ALIVE framework, the ALIVE. I can share more about. Do you want me to share about that, or do you?
Well, I mean, if you want to share the information so folks, that are listening
Sure.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
because the next question I ask is, well, how do folks get in touch with you, sort of thing. But so that might be the easiest thing for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't quite hear that last part of it, but I'll share the alive part, and then you can go into that. So the A is for allowing more yin to your yang. And we live in a very go, go, go. Yang is like hustle and grind energy. And yin, right, is reflect, digest, rest. And mostly people don't plan for that because they're so in a linear growth pattern, like go, 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 10 times your growth. So Stephanie is a good story. She had an insurance company, small agency of 5 employees, and she used this. So what we with yin time structured her actual time off first, her vacation, her family time, and then in her busiest quarter, kind of like a tax, prepare during tax season, she anyway, she was able to create way more time and do all the fun things, and so much that her competitor wondered, like, are you still even in business? And she's like, well, yeah. She's like, how's that possible? She's like, well, my coach. So anyway, I won't go through a story for each one, but there's just listening within, and then in inspiring your soul first thing in the morning about your morning habits. There's valuing your fears. We touched on that earlier. And then energize your daily flow, which is about more the movement and with your body.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, man, there's a laundry list of what did I learns in this, but because I'm very proud of myself, I'm going to go with the Ray Wiley Hubbard is as a songwriter has proven that there is this connection and energy levels or energy feelings and that spirituality. Yeah, but I'm just going to leave it at that rather than digesting more of that song, because it's a funny song. But there's a lot of meaning to that song too, because he's a heck of a songwriter. So yeah, that was it for me. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
I was going to say, go throw on some Sturgill Simpson after this. I got some songs for you.
Oh, yeah.
But no, really, as much as this is almost like a cop out I need to branch out on my philosophy more, because I've been diving deep on my stoicism and I'm reading through meditations, but I've got Book of 5 Rings right there. And I've got a lot of other ones I'm wanting to get into. And so because I am one that I have always thought that, like, just like you're saying, Anna, of it's like there's always seemed to me like there's a little bit of truth. I've joked before. It's like everything is like 90% truth. You just got to find what it is, and then there's 10% BS usually on top there. But the just branching out into those other ones and just finding those connecting layers, because it can be really enlightening to hear it from a different perspective. I think with philosophy, to make a little bit of a point of it, I think that. We say this all the time, coaching, like especially like coaching rugby. Like I'll go out and help out a club around Tucson, and I'll say the same thing that their coach has been saying to them for 6 months, and they'll listen. And I think that philosophy, you can get the same kind of thing when you hear it from like a different type of perspective. That it's like, hearing someone else put it a different way, you go, oh my gosh, wow. You don't realize that you heard the same thing in church growing up as a Methodist, or, like you don't realize you've heard those same things over and over again, but it just takes hearing it that one right way to really get it to sink in. So I need to branch out of my philosophy a little bit more, be more proactive.
The Living Tao, a lot of this is Tao based. So that would be a good one to read. It's very practical. Yeah.
Anna, what'd you learn?
That there's always something to find in common, no matter what, regardless of faith or where we come from. I appreciate, and this is just a nice testament with all of you here, lovely men, that we can always find a common ground. And that's non-threatening, and that we can embrace and honor. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that.
How can folks get in touch with you?
They can just go to my website, www.annasunchoi.com, ANNASUNCHOI.com.
That's awesome. And that's where they can learn more about these programs that you have going on and get involved in that, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This This has been enlightening. Yes, I did have to do the dad joke on that one. But yeah, a lot of fun, some great discussions. I really appreciate your time. Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Anna Sun Choi, for joining us today, and our sponsor, Tribe and Purpose. Find your tribe, find your purpose. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotishow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next week.